welcome today's guest. We're doing something a little bit different. It's real time, it's evolving. Our guest today is Rachel Zeller. Hi, Rachel. How are you?
Hi, Todd. I'm great. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, this is awesome. Rachel, who are you and what are we working on today?
I am the managing director slash integrator for Kitces.com. We provide education and resources for financial advisors, making them more successful. I'm like the wizard behind the curtain. I make all the back end things happen while all of our nerds make all the great things happen for the advisor community.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah, yeah,
And Kits is a great company, and I've worked with y'all for a couple of
yeah,
years now.
yeah,
I've been super impressed about how you approach people and humanity. And then also, one of your core tenant values is get your nerd on. So
yeah,
we, we have
yeah,
to talk about AI in a world, it's a
yeah,
tool. And then is it,
yeah,
where's the line between
right,
kind of abusing the people and empowering the people?
yeah.
Um, you want to talk about like how did you get into Kitsis? What were you doing right before Kitsis started?
So I was trying to spin up my own virtual bookkeeping business in 2006. At that point, it was really hard to get people to hire you as a virtual employee if you didn't already have references as a virtual employee. It was one of those catch 22s. And Michael Kitces was my first bookkeeping client. He took a chance on me. And so I was doing his bookkeeping. I was helping him book speaking. I worked for him about 5 hours a month.
Oh
And
wow.
then I spent about 9 years building up my bookkeeping business and had a whole bunch of clients. And then about 9 years later, he came to me and said, "How would you like to let go of all your other clients and come work for me full time?" And that was
Yes.
in, yep, and that was in 2016. And he said, "I have no idea what it's going to look like, but it's going to be so much fun." And he was not wrong. And
Yeah.
we've been having a great time for the last 10 years or so.
Wow. No,
Yeah.
probably more than that, right?
Yeah.
And then you and Michael are in different cities. So your
Yeah.
company has been pure virtual from the beginning when it was not
Correct.
cool.
Correct. Yes. Yeah.
Wow. And so you're way ahead of your time in that
Yeah.
respect. And
Yep.
so you described yourself as integrator, which is a
Yep.
very specific term in the
Yep.
EOS world. You want to talk
Right.
about what EOS is and then what an
Yeah.
integrator is in that context?
Yeah, sure. So we run on EOS. It's the Entrepreneurial Operating System. It gives us a framework for how we run the business. And so basically, the idea is that every company is run by a visionary integrator duo.
Hmm.
And so the visionary essentially like has the vision for what is the company supposed to be. They do a lot of culture setting. They figure out our long-term 10-year, what's this going to be long term, and then the integrator takes that vision and makes it reality. How does it get done?
Okay.
So yeah,
So like COO, but very
yeah.
specific. Like why are we doing this
Yeah,
and what's it
yeah.
for?
Integrators can be COO, it can be CFO, that sort of a thing. But yeah, yeah,
And I think that works. Just kind of watching, I got to compliment you and Michael. Y'all work very well together. Kind
yes,
of bounce off each other in really
yeah,
healthy ways.
yeah,
So that's fun. Okay, so as you grew, I know you kind of like most companies, you grow a little bit, little bit, little bit, little bit,
yeah,
and then you have that knee in the curve that happens, and you go, "Oh my God, this is cool."
yeah.
And then oh
Yep,
crap, like we
yep,
have to grow up and get some systems in place.
yeah,
So you want to talk about what that moment was like for you? I know like there's a definite chart that I've seen, there's a definite
yeah.
year that happened for you.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, very early days, we were hiring a couple people each year. Just we had a lot of contractors, and then we just had like a few people here and there. 2021, we doubled in size.
Wow.
Yeah, so we doubled our staff. It was super painful trying to get through all that hiring. Nobody knew what they were doing because nobody had been here very long.
Right?
Um, and so it took a long time to get everybody's feet under them. We were essentially building the plane while flying it because everyone was looking to ops for how do we do XYZ, what's the policy on this, and we didn't have any of that. And so every time someone asked a question, that was my cue to figure out what the answer was and then put it down into a process and a system and build it as we were going.
Work on the business, not in the
Yeah,
business. Yeah.
right,
And that's a
exactly.
hard thing to do.
Yeah,
And y'all are doing a great job at that.
yeah,
Okay, so you go from not to, you're doubling from a meaningful number of
yeah,
folks to
yeah,
a very big meaningful number of folks
yeah,
in a very short period of time because you had
yeah,
to, right? And
right.
then what and then at what point do you say, okay, I have to delegate, I have to have a people leader in this?
Mm.
What was that decision like?
Let's see. So you mean for me?
Yeah.
So I hired my first ops person. Gosh, I think she came on in 2021, I
Hmm.
want to say. Um, and she was my ops manager, and she helped me do hiring, and she was excellent. She built our first actual onboarding process. Prior to her, we didn't have an onboarding process other than here's how you get a paycheck. Go figure out what your job is. See ya. She she did our first onboarding process. That was fantastic.
Yeah.
Um, and that was great. And now we're actually in the process of hiring our very first director of people operations, and I'm about to hand off quite a bit more,
Yeah.
which is really really exciting. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Well, and I know you and I have been through a couple of hiring cycles for folks, and then things have changed in the last couple of years in
yeah,
meaningful ways.
yeah,
I think there's been a lot more auto apply, or what something happened 2 3 years ago where you'd get all the applicants in, and then like I don't know, a third or half of them would have exactly the same answers, and you think,
yeah.
man, is there like some classroom somewhere that
Right.
or you know and then
Yeah,
it took us a minute to figure all that stuff
it did.
out. You want to
Yeah.
kind of reflect on what's going on there?
Yeah, so we definitely saw that with the launching of AI and being much more prevalent to the general user. I mean, AI has been around for a long time, but with ChatGPT becoming popularized and all of that, people were looking for shortcuts to be able to fill out applications and get noticed. And I think the idea was they thought that if they used AI to help them look more polished or could map it more directly to the resume, I believe that their idea was that it would make them stand out. And unfortunately, what we're seeing is that it seems to be doing the exact opposite of that.
Hmm.
And to your point, everything's starting to look the same. And that makes it really hard to identify the really great people. They might be in there, but it's harder to see them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I might be partially to blame for some of this. I don't know if I talked about this. So I don't know, 2012 through 2016 ish. I was CTO of a company called Higher IQ, not
Yeah.
around anymore. But so we were the first folks to get some patents on going through lots of employees. So it was the other side of this coin. It's like, man, we've
Right.
got 500 people applying for like 10 call center jobs.
Yeah.
How do you possibly pick between
Yeah.
them? And then so we employed machine learning PhDs and a whole
Yeah.
team of folks, and then we kind of weed through. But what was kind of interesting is I think that's part of the problem is string matching. So ATS's applicant tracking systems got
Right.
lazy, right? And then you say,
Yeah.
here's the job description, here's the
Yeah.
resume,
Right.
like which one has the most words in common, which is kind of a
Right.
lazy way to do it. I
Yeah.
think at Higher IQ, we were taking a human first approach, which I think is still good, of ask them important questions, or like, tell me about a time you had a great boss and what that mean for
Right.
your job. And then we
Yeah.
would, and then I know you have a counseling background, but
Yeah.
we would pull out a psychometric profile
Mm.
of high activation or low activation, or
Okay.
positive valence or negative valence. So if you're
Yeah.
high energy and negative, like you could be a
Yeah.
credit collector,
Right.
or if you're high energy and positive, we'd put you on a sales job, right? And then
Okay.
so that
Yeah.
was that was kind of a proxy, like that was an initial stab at, okay, we
Yeah.
can't do string matching, like that doesn't work,
Right.
or you just take the first 50 and then whatever, and then
Right.
how do you effectively get through that big pile? And then so now it's kind of like on both sides, right? So you have
Right.
a pile of candidates, and then poor candidates are applying to as many jobs as they can because it's a
Right.
numbers game. And
Exactly.
then you know,
Yeah.
and then so so how does this logjam? break, right? We're kind of wrestling
Right.
with that this year of,
Yeah.
there's got to be some really good humans in here. And gosh, it sure would be
Yeah.
nice to get to them. How are we thinking about that?
So we try and slow it down. We don't use the easy apply. That's not, we turn that off in LinkedIn
Mm-hmm.
completely. And we direct people to an application form. And, and I make it relatively robust with the idea in mind that if it's too long for someone and they're going to get tired throughout or decide it's not worth it, that's an easy weeding out of people who aren't super excited about this particular job. We also spend a lot of time on the job description itself. And I've had quite a few people comment on that when I ask them, like, why did you apply for this job in particular? They will talk about, like, oh, I really, really felt like I got a sense of your company just based on the job description. I was able to feel the culture and the core values really coming through in the way that you wrote it. And I'm glad to hear that because we do spend a lot of time
Mm-hmm.
crafting those very intentionally, both to try and draw in the right people and also to scare away the people who won't really be happy here because nothing is for everyone. We're not going to be for everyone. So I want someone who's not going to feel comfortable working in a super nerdy environment to say, "Oh, no, thank you. That's not for me." So I try and slow it down. That's the
Right.
first part. Yeah.
And then you put an emphasis on a human is
Yeah.
going to look at everybody. If you take the time to apply, we're going
Yes.
to reciprocate, and
Yes.
it's painful, but we're going to do it, and
Yeah.
we're somebody will read your resume.
Correct. The entire application form and your resume and your cover letter. And we also give an option to submit a 2-minute video. Someone will look at your video as well. Yeah, we look at all of the pieces.
And there's no auto string matching ATS
No,
anywhere. It's a
no,
person or a
it's a
couple
person.
people. Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
And and then and then how do you? That's very unusual.
Yeah.
It's very traditional, right?
Yeah.
But in this day and age, that's super unusual, where everybody
Yeah.
wants to automate, automate, automate.
Right.
Do you do you? What's the trade off? I guess. I mean, you're super intentional, and then you're gonna, the ones
Yeah.
that are applying to a million jobs because hey, I gotta
Yeah.
eat next week.
Yeah.
Are are maybe not gonna have time to go through something like that, right? But you're gonna
Right.
get a great fit.
Right.
Is that?
That's right. Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, I'm sympathetic to the people who don't take a lot of time. They get a rejection. Sometimes they'll email me back and say, um, "Can you give me more feedback? I understand I may not have put a lot into the application." And to your point, I actually just got an email this morning, someone saying to me, "I'm working all day. I'm applying to jobs at night. I'm really tired. I probably could have put more into that." And I'm so sympathetic to that. And I can't take all of those individually, unfortunately. Um, but there are quite a few people who are spending a nice amount of time putting their human selves into our applications, and it pays off because I can tell when it's a real person bringing themselves to the process, and those people are much more likely to get through.
I've had a couple of experiences with people focused brands, where when the brand is important, and people's opinion of that brand is also important. It always is, but
Yeah,
not every brand understands that.
yeah,
Do you feel like when you treat people well, even if it doesn't work out, like
yeah,
somehow there's going to be like a little
yeah.
positive thing out there in the universe for your company? Does that matter?
Oh, 100%. And I'll tell you how it shows up. Multiple people on the team applied more than once to come work here and were
Oh,
rejected the first time for whatever reason. It wasn't the right time, it wasn't quite the right seat. They came back for a different seat, maybe a year, maybe two later, and applied again, and then they got the job. And I had one person who tried twice before she ended up on the team, and then she was with us for 5 years, and it was amazing, and she was fantastic.
okay.
It just wasn't the right timing originally, but the fact that we can say no thank you to someone in a moment and they still feel good enough about the whole process that they want to try again, I feel really good about.
That's a huge deal, right?
Yeah,
And then the fact that the best people may, just may not be the right time for whatever
yeah,
reason, and then come back.
yep,
That's huge.
yeah,
Um, one of the things we talked about a couple weeks ago, I guess, was
Yeah.
you were a little bit unnerved about a candidate that AI their way, the whole way, almost all the way through, and then right at the end, you kind of went, "Whoa, like what is this?" You want to
Yeah.
talk about that, and then kind of like how are we thinking about, what's the
Yeah.
right amount? Because we want people to use a little bit to be productive,
Oh,
right? And then
sure.
where's the
Absolutely.
line?
Yeah, so this one really bummed me out because it wasn't that she was using AI for all the pieces. It looked like she was using it as a crutch when there were questions or places that she wasn't feeling confident. So I read her application as one of the first ones that came through. So it was only later when I went back and looked at her application that I realized how much of it was AI generated because then it started to I realized it looked the same as the next 50 that came after it, but because it was one of the early ones, I hadn't caught that yet. So I
Hmm.
brought her through for a screening call, and she did really well there. Those are only 10 minutes, and she did great in the screening call, showed up really well. So we brought her through for a first round, and it was interesting because some of the questions she answered really well, really authentically. She's looking at the camera, she's making good expressions. It just it really resonated with me. And then sometimes it looked like she would get stuck on a question. And when she would get stuck, she wouldn't do the usual and say something like, "Oh, that's an interesting question. Let me think about that for a minute." That's typically what candidates do when they want to buy themselves a little bit of time to think of their answer, which is very fair. Instead, I was noticing that her eyes would go like up and to the right, and then her right, and then she's like looking, and then her answers got super polished and scripted,
Oh,
and then she
okay.
would sort of come back. And so we always, aside from the screening call, which is just one person, all the following interviews, it's always two people in the room because I like having different perspectives on the same scenario. So I was running that interview with our senior director of engagement, and afterwards I reflected with him. I was like, "Did you notice it? What'd you think?" And he said, "I didn't catch it in the moment, but now that you're saying that, now I'm remembering, yeah, that's interesting." And we agreed we liked her authentic answers enough. We wanted to really know what she could do. So we brought her through to work sample.
Okay.
And so she did the work sample, we graded that. And then we always do a second round interview with everyone who does the work sample. And same thing happened again with the second round interview. Answers where it really seemed like it was her, very authentic, really smart, weren't super polished, but really smart, great answers.
Hmm.
But it was enough of that up and to the right. And I said to him, I'm like, "I just don't know how much she actually knows. Like, is this because she's nervous or
Yeah.
because she doesn't actually know the role?" And it was a tough candidate pool. She was up against some other really amazing people. And I couldn't take a chance that she didn't really know what she was talking about. And she was relying too much on a support.
It's like a default. I don't know
Yeah.
by
Yeah.
going like
Right.
over to the crutch.
Yeah. Yeah.
Gosh, it's so hard because
Yeah.
you want people to use technology,
Right.
and then but then you also want them to be competent.
Yeah.
Um, let's talk about work product, and then
Yeah.
maybe we can kind of drill down a little bit.
Yeah.
So like in software,
Yeah.
work product is getting kind of weird because you
Right.
send somebody home and say, hey, go build a whatever.
Sure.
You know, it's
Yep.
going to be AI generated like
Yeah.
100% of the time
Right.
in this day and
Right.
age because they're
Yeah.
applying to a million jobs.
Sure.
What is that still a valid step, or should we
Yeah.
like do that live on the internet, or should like how do we like you kind of want to know how they work, right?
Yeah, sure. So, yeah, our work samples have evolved a lot, and even significantly over the last 3 months, we've evolved it. We were running three hiring processes all basically at the same time in the last few months, and so that gave us a really good opportunity to iterate quickly what was working, what still wasn't quite working, that sort of thing. So, yeah, to your point, 2 years ago, I was just giving someone a work sample of something that they might have to produce in the real job. They would go home, they would produce it, they would send it in. We grade them blindly so that we're not uh, having it in our heads like, oh, the candidate who just interviews really well gets a great score on their work sample, so blind grading on that. Um, and then some AI generated work products were slipping through, and I accidentally did hire someone who it turns out AI had made her work sample, and she couldn't she couldn't talk about it well enough.
Okay.
And 2 years ago, I didn't catch that, and so I ended up with the wrong person in the seat. Um, so now what we are doing is we've adjusted the work samples so that there really is no right answer.
Hmm.
So it doesn't help to use AI because there's no right answer. I'm trying to evaluate how are you thinking, and I ask people now to submit their AI transcript with their work sample.
That's pretty cool. And then let's talk about it on top of
Yeah.
that.
Yep,
Okay.
yep.
And
And then that's part of the second round interview is the whole first part of that interview is where I want to know your process
mhm.
for doing this work sample.
So I expect you to use AI.
Mm-hmm.
Here's the thing
Yep,
that we want to talk about.
yep,
I want you to show me your work,
yep,
using the tool of your choice.
yep.
Would you say, hey, screenshot your setup so I can see like how sophisticated you are? Is that even a thing?
Not yet. Not
Okay.
yet.
Don't
Yeah,
care. Just
we're not there yet.
whatever
And it
whatever
might
you're
also be
comfortable with.
role,
Yeah.
yeah, and it might also be role dependent.
Okay.
So
All
yeah,
right.
yeah,
And then bring your work, and
yeah,
then we want to see that you're a leveraged human,
yep.
right? But you're still human, and you're
But
still
you're human.
smart, and you're still
Yeah,
going to get your nerd on during the day.
yeah, yep,
Boy, that seems about right.
yeah,
I'm trying to, I gotta interview a couple software folks here in a
yeah,
couple days, maybe tonight. But
yeah.
how like I want them to use these new tools.
Right,
They have to, right?
right.
And wield them proficiently. But
Yeah,
then I also want to know that there's someone that I can count on, and it's going to be
yeah,
diligent, and is going to be it's almost like we've kind of gone up the humanity stack of skills,
yeah.
right? You can't be just a nerd in a closet anymore. You have to
Right.
be a manager of people
And you
and
have to be
tools, right?
right, and you have to be able to collaborate. Like, I want to be able to pull people into a room to brainstorm. Can you push back on me and say, "Hey, Rachel, you're only thinking about it from this side. I need you to come over here and think about it from this side." AI isn't great yet at pushing back and telling you when you're wrong about everything. Like, it still likes to tell you that you're
It's a
right about
great idea.
everything.
Yeah.
Exactly, it's a great idea. I need human beings who are going to tell me when I'm wrong.
What's the
That's
problem?
helpful.
What's the problem with
Yeah.
this? Or in
Hmm.
your experience, tell me about a
Yeah.
time. Those kind of
Exactly.
questions.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Huh? What's old is new again.
Right. Yeah.
Well, so when these people come through and they use a little bit of AI, you're good with that now, right? And then
Yeah.
say there's how do you set expectations as they're going through the process of, okay, we're not going to hide from it. We also don't
Hmm.
want you to be 100% AI because we've already got
Right.
AI on staff. We
Yeah.
want good humans to, like, how do you set those expectations as they go through?
So I've been in the application. What I have right now is it's just a drop down, and it says something to the effect of um, there's a time and a place for AI. Can we all commit to showing up as human beings to this process? And it's a drop down yes or no, like yes, I can be a human in this process. No, I think AI is the only way to go. It's basically it is a false choice. Like the only right answer is yes, of course I can be a human.
Right.
My hope was to deter people for whom that would make them nervous. Like, oh, they're really going to watch out that I know what I'm doing. And I was hoping to get fewer resumes. And I think I have gotten a fewer for sure. Um, but I think that can still be tweaked. That's doing okay, slowing people down a little bit, letting them know, yeah, we use AI around here, but we're very human centric, so I'm going to expect the person to show up. Um, but I think that there's room for improvement with that. And then with the work sample, there's instructions like if you're going to use AI, we actually don't require it, but if you're going to use AI, here's what you need to submit. And then if you're not going to use it, I'm going to ask you about that. Why did you choose not to use it? I had a couple people opt not to use AI in their work samples, and they had very reasoned thinking behind it. One person just said, um, I really wanted to showcase to you how I thought about things. I can show you my AI skills other ways if you really want me to, but for this particular assignment, it was more important to me to show you what my thought process was. I had another person say, "Oh, your work sample was purely my experience. I have experience doing all these things. I really didn't need the help. I had good stories, and so I just used it." So like,
Right.
great, okay, perfect, yeah,
So the 2 minute video, and then the hey, do work product, and then we're going to talk about it.
yeah,
Do you? I think you also we go Team Blue here. So you have psychographic
yeah,
assessments in the
yes,
pipeline, right? So we're going to talk
yes,
about that, and is that
sure.
still valid and useful, or is it?
Oh, yes. Oh, we love Colby and Working Genius.
Mhm.
Though they're not personality tests, they are the how you show up to work tests. Um,
No, what
when
is
you
that?
are,
Let's talk about
so
what that.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So it's when you are faced with a work problem, basically. What's your natural inclination? How do you solve it? So Colby looks at there's the four sections. It's fact finder, process, quick start, and they call it implementer. It's basically how tangible do you need things to be. So everything from a one would be I only think in abstracts, and a 10 would be I have to chop down a tree and whittle it myself into a canoe, and then I, so,
Yeah.
how tangible do you need to be? So essentially, when someone's going to get started on a project, um, if they're a long fact finder, they're going to ask a million questions and try and dig in and get all of that up front before they get started. I'm probably not going to hire a researcher who is short in fact finding, who isn't interested in finding out all the details. That probably wouldn't be a good match.
Right.
So that might be one of the things I'm looking for. Um, and similar with the process part, like, are you someone who thrives and strives for a strict process, or are you someone who likes to question those things, maybe break down bureaucracy and question all the why does it need to be this way? There's a time and a place for both, and so I want to make sure that I'm putting people who have those natural tendencies in the right spot so that when they show up in their place of comfort, it's useful to them and to the company.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah,
So
so
it's kind of like
great.
what we were doing with Higher
Yeah,
IQ, where we
yeah,
had 5 jobs we identified in a call center, and then we could
right.
map them to different like
Yeah,
aspects that we can measure, right? And
yeah,
then you try to find the right person for the right job.
exactly.
It's all about the humanity all over again, right?
Yeah.
So maybe the human factors is the most important part of the job interview now. Is that kind of where we're coming down?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, and that's the other thing we talk about a lot is let's think about what can be trained versus what can't be trained. What are people's natural tendencies? How are they going to show up as people when they are either managing people or running a project or coming into a brainstorming session, showing up at our in-person retreats. We are fully distributed remote, but twice a year we get together in person because there's nothing like being in a room actually with people. Who are the people who are going to show up, and what's that going to look like? Um, and which skills can be trained along the way? Like, what do we need them to know on day one, but what can we actually train them to do along the way?
Do you think AI is getting so good at so many tactical things?
Yeah,
The skills that you would have had to have even 2 years ago are
yeah,
much different than the actual skills you have to have now.
right.
Do you see a near term future where we're not screening for skills? Like you have X years of blah de blah. You know, I want somebody with 10 years of Excel. I don't know. That's kind of a light requirement,
Yeah,
but
well, and that's another interesting thing. We don't ask for years of experience. It's what can you do a thing?
hmm.
So because you could have been working with Excel for 10 years and still not have gotten past,
Hmm.
just doing a sum. I might want to know a little bit more than that. Um, I don't know. I am a little bit old school right now. I do still like people to have enough Excel so that they can read a formula, understand where data's coming from. If something's broken, can they look at a formula and understand that it's pointing to these four different places and maybe start to vet something. I'm assuming that at some point we're not going to need that anymore, but right now I still like people having some of that knowledge. Um, yeah, I don't know. I really do think those human skills, can you read faces on a screen, especially being a remote team, we require cameras on,
Hmm.
because we're already losing a lot by not being in a room together. So can you tell when someone who you're on a call with is feeling uncomfortable, or if they're not feeling like their voice is heard, or they're having a bad day? Can you pay attention to that and then grab them later for a coffee and be like, hey, was everything okay? Because that really elevates our time at work, is when um, people see each other, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, the
Yeah,
human touch, you still need to interact with
yeah,
humans.
yeah,
Kind of going back a little bit, I was reflecting on my own, like, everybody's figuring all this stuff out, right? So I think there's
yeah,
going to be two sets of people. So there's going to be older folks that had to come up, grinding through Excel every day, all
yeah,
day, that are going to be super valuable in
yeah,
that, like, we had to earn it and figure out how to set
right,
things up in a
yeah,
certain way so that it's going to work out. And
yeah,
then you're definitely, with me on that side of the curve. And
yeah,
then, we were talking about, like, hey, how do we, what's AI good for, right? So you could
yeah,
wield AI to go set up, um, an accounting system or financial system just the way you like it because you've got
yep,
scar tissue to, to know
yep,
what to avoid or, to make it
yeah,
easier. Whereas, someone who's just like really starting out, that is really good wielder of some of these technology tools
yeah,
doesn't have to know any of that stuff to be effective and
right,
competent on a job, but they're still not going to have, like, they're never going to get to the level of functioning or understanding of the basic,
right, right,
structures. Is that a
right.
big deal, or like, where it's just kind of a weird future, right?
I don't know that it's a big deal as long as we can figure out how do we train those people to then be able to ask the right questions.
Hmm.
Like, I think we learned how to ask the business questions behind the data sheets because we had our hands so in the data sheets. So it's much more important, I think, for the people coming up to understand what are the questions we're asking, how are we making business decisions. They don't necessarily have to know how all the Excel formulas are built, but they have to understand the meaning behind the numbers. And so I think that's the next phase, is we have to figure out how to train that new crop of people into understanding how we're thinking about things.
So if you're looking at, I know you have a college age son, right? So
Yeah, yeah,
if he's going to go out in the world, how do we coach people his age, where you say, hey, you might not want to go deep in learning Excel
yeah,
spreadsheet formulas, but you definitely want to go deep in having meaningful experiences with peers, or, like, what are we
right,
telling your son, my
yeah,
son, they're both college
yeah,
age.
yeah.
How do they get ready for the next, what's down the road immediately?
Yeah, well, mine is getting a degree in psychology.
Oh, okay.
So,
Okay.
so
Okay.
he's learning about people, and then basically just a lot of talking about how do you present yourself in a job interview?
Hmm.
How do you prepare for that? Training both of my kids in how to make eye contact and shake hands when you're meeting somebody new. Um,
We forgot
those
about that.
small,
Like, people don't.
I
Yeah.
know, it's small things, and how to follow up, how to
Okay.
do polite follow-ups on things, making sure that he knows nobody is as invested in his development as a person as he is. And so sometimes that means he needs to know how to do polite follow-ups, and how to do those sort of outreaches, and basically just coaching him through conversations that he's about to have.
Maybe there's a good product for someone out there in the world to, career coaching,
Yeah,
all the stuff we forgot,
yeah, right.
when everybody had to, show up with wingtips and a tie, to
Well,
the job.
there's that, and also, when we were little, we got to observe our parents having those conversations. We overheard our parents on the phone having to, even though it was a one-sided conversation, negotiating with friends, family, whoever, and now we're all texting and it's all very quiet. and the kids don't get to see that. So you have to be much more intentional about sharing with them how to have those conversations back and forth because they're not observing us anymore.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
I saw a YouTube thing the other day. I don't know why I got down this rabbit hole, but it was like a second mate on a cargo ship, and he was showing everybody around. But one of the
Yeah.
things that struck me was like, here's the where the crew goes when they're just hanging out off
Okay.
duty, and there was
Yeah.
like a guitar, and it was kind of stuffed behind a crack, and then
Okay.
there's a bunch of Xbox, and there was like nobody around. And he's like, yeah, we used to come in here and like hang out and play
Yeah.
dice or cards or whatever.
Right.
And then now everybody just kind of shuts down, goes to the room, flips their phone
Yeah.
open, and does
Right.
social media. And then
Right.
I thought, man, that's an interesting commentary on culture at large.
Well, yeah. So like I said, we do these in-person retreats twice a year. One of the things we invest in is the hospitality suite, and it is decked out with board games and puzzles, and it's full. Like people go there, and food, obviously, food and drink, because you gotta have a lot of food. Um, the hospitality suite is generally really busy because most of the time we do get our quiet introvert time, but twice a year we take advantage. We come together. It's really nice.
Yeah. Let
Yeah.
me let's go rapid fire real quick. I know
Oh
these
God.
are kind of a
Okay.
little bit challenging. You don't have to answer them
Okay.
all, but
Okay.
all right. AI and hiring, helpful tool or a thing that breaks the trust in the candidate relationship?
Uh, I think it can be either. I haven't heard any candidates liking being interviewed by an AI tool, like in a video. I haven't heard anything good about that from a candidate side, so I'm not terribly interested in that. I'm not totally negative to it, but I'm not sold yet.
I don't want to be interviewed by an AI. I want to be
Yeah.
interviewed by a person because that's who I'm
Yeah.
working with.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, next one. One question you'd ask every candidate in an AI saturated world that an AI couldn't possibly answer for them.
Um, that's where I like to ask them their process of thinking through a particular thing because there is no right answer. You can come at it from a lot of different angles. And so I think you get to trip up AI when there's no one right answer.
All right, this one might be a little bit easier.
Okay.
Culture fit or AI fluency, pick one.
Oh, culture fit.
Every time, flat
Every
out.
time. Yeah.
Right? Yeah. All right. Best hire you ever made and what made them irreplaceably human?
Wow.
You don't have to name names.
I know I can't, and I'm not even sure that I could pick. The thing that makes them irreplaceably human is it is that really being able to connect with people on the screen because it's hard. It's really hard. And yeah, being able to know their people. I'm thinking of my managers, my people leaders, and they are excellent
All
at
your directors are awesome.
yeah, really knowing and caring about their people as individuals. Yeah, I'm super lucky.
I'll say the directors that you have
Yeah,
are always willing to say this is too much. We don't
yeah,
need to kill ourselves
yep,
on this. Let's kind of
yep,
crank back, even if we're going to miss our goal, and that's
yep,
okay.
yep.
So super people oriented.
And we are very,
Yeah.
very goal centric, and yet we get a lot of nice, healthy pushback on, yeah, this is too much. It might be worth missing the goal to save the person. Absolutely love having those conversations.
All right. Let's talk about your skill set. How's it changing? What skill do you use AI for that you thought would always be a human thing?
Coming up with great interview questions.
Yeah.
Hadn't occurred to me a number of years ago, but that's a great place I go. Like, give me here's the criteria I'm looking for. But yeah, I love AI helping me grab some great interview questions. Yeah,
You know what I do that's kind of fun. When I do like a podcast,
yeah,
I'll even though I know the people that I'm having on, I'll have AI go out and go like
yeah.
scour the internet and say,
Oh
here's what
yeah.
like what's some cool things we could talk about.
Uh-huh.
And it's surprising. Everybody should do that on their own
Yeah.
name, but it's surprising what comes back, and then
Yeah.
you'll see like these little tidbits of
Yeah.
personal stuff that
Oh,
come
that's
back.
fun. Yeah.
So It's kind of neat.
Cool.
All
Yeah.
right, last one. If you could send one message to every hiring manager who's posting jobs right now, what would you tell them, or what should we be thinking about?
I would tell them to turn off the easy apply. I think they're just getting flooded um, with, yeah, with unnecessary numbers of resumes. And I understand it can feel like a numbers game, and sometimes it is just timing. But yeah, I would tell them to turn that off.
Turn off the easy button.
Yeah.
Okay, so what in the next, like, I don't know, couple quarters, 6 months, a year, what should we? How do we know if companies are getting smarter about all this, or what do you think is going to change that we can look at externally if you're an industry analyst to pick up on this change in behavior?
In the hiring process,
Yeah, how do we know that people are getting better or making adaptations?
oh, I'm hoping that that there's a pendulum swing back to the slowing down and people really requiring more humans to show up as applicants, and that I stop seeing so much repetition in the applications, and that people start applying to fewer, more targeted jobs that are really for them.
And then the last question is, you got a couple jobs you got open right now that people can apply to?
Oh, that people can apply to, because
Are you
yeah,
hiring? Are you hiring? You got a great team.
yeah, we're hiring for our senior technical editor. So this is ideally someone who's got a CFP background in financial planning, who just cannot stop editing all of their colleagues' documents. Just can't help themselves to put the comma in where it really needs to be. Um, Yeah, so that's what we're hiring for this minute. Gosh, we're going to be hiring more this year. We have a general application form on our career opportunities page at kitces.com. So I would recommend anybody who's interested go there. If the role that they really are passionate about is not available now, fill out the general application form. Before I open up any role, I always check that area to see, was there a good candidate who just threw their name in the hat, who I want to invite personally to apply for the next open role. So
Okay, so
yeah,
if there's not a perfect role, but you love
yeah,
the company, then
yeah,
go ahead and fill out the general application
yes,
form. Take your time because somebody's going to read it.
yeah. Humans
And
look at
then,
that too. Yeah.
okay,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I'm really proud of y'all for doing that. That's takes a lot of work, but I think it's the right thing to do
Yeah.
in the world.
Yeah. Thank
And
you.
then if anybody wants to reach out to you individually after this,
Yeah.
what's a great way to find you on the internet?
Yeah. I'm on LinkedIn, Rachel Zeller, and I'm at rachel@kitces.com. That's also a great way to reach me. Yeah. So
Well,
please reach.
great.
Yeah.
It's been good having you, and thanks for
Yeah.
spending the time.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for having me. Great to talk to you.
Bye for now.